John had always dreamed of exploring the stars. Ever since he was a child, he imagined worlds beyond the sky, planets filled with strange creatures, and civilizations unlike anything on Earth. Now, years later, he stood on the deck of his small exploration ship, gazing at a glowing planet below. Its surface shimmered with colors he had never seen before. The atmosphere was dense with swirling clouds of green and gold. He could feel the excitement building in his chest. This was his chance to discover something truly extraordinary. He guided his ship through the planet's thin upper atmosphere, careful not to trigger the turbulence that rolled across its skies. The landing area was a natural plateau surrounded by crystalline formations that sparkled in the sunlight. As the landing gears touched the ground, John could feel a slight vibration through his boots. He stepped out of the ship, his eyes widening at the sight before him. Towering structures rose from the landscape, made of a smooth material that seemed alive, reflecting the light in changing colors. Alien birds with translucent wings flew gracefully between the towers, and the air was filled with a gentle hum, almost like music. John adjusted his exploration suit and began walking toward the structures. He noticed paths lined with luminous plants, each glowing in a soft blue hue. The air smelled fresh, like a combination of rain and flowers. He had read reports of intelligent life on this planet, but no one knew much about them. He expected to find small creatures, maybe some tribes living in scattered villages. What he did not expect was the city. It was massive, organized, and vibrant. As he entered the main plaza, John noticed movement among the inhabitants. The aliens were taller than humans, with smooth skin that reflected light like polished metal. Their eyes were large and expressive, showing curiosity but also caution. Some had patterns across their skin that glowed faintly, like veins of energy. They moved gracefully, almost floating, yet they spoke in soft melodic sounds. John did not understand their language, but he could feel the intelligence in their expressions. A group of young aliens approached him cautiously. They did not look hostile, but they studied him as if trying to understand what he was. John smiled warmly and raised his hand in greeting. One of them, taller than the others, stepped forward. This alien had a crown-like structure on their head, glowing faintly with a golden light. The group immediately stepped back slightly, and a hush fell over the plaza. John felt a surge of nervousness. This must be someone important. The alien spoke in a series of melodic tones, and the others repeated softly. John shook his head, trying to signal that he did not understand. Then he gestured to himself, "John," and pointed to the ship. Slowly, the alien's expression changed from curiosity to something softer. A single word came through, though not in sound he could hear: "Welcome." The alien's presence was commanding yet not threatening. Their eyes met John's, and he felt a strange sense of connection, as if they were examining not just his appearance, but his character. He realized that this being, whoever they were, was the ruler of the city. Everything about them radiated authority, but also an unusual openness. He bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. The alien inclined their head in return. A loud chime echoed through the plaza, and more aliens began to gather. They formed a circle around John and the tall alien. John understood that something significant was about to happen. He could feel the weight of their attention on him, but he refused to panic. He smiled, trying to appear friendly and confident. The tall alien stepped closer and extended a hand in a motion that seemed to invite John to follow. He nodded and moved carefully, aware that he was under close scrutiny. The alien led him through winding corridors of the palace, which seemed alive with energy. The walls pulsed with light as they moved, and the floor hummed softly beneath his feet. Each room they passed contained strange artifacts, some resembling sculptures, others like advanced technology he could not recognize. Finally, they entered a large chamber with a high ceiling that glowed with soft light. In the center of the room was a raised platform, and atop it stood a figure who radiated power and grace. This was the alien queen. Her presence made John pause. She was taller than any human, with long flowing patterns of light across her skin. Her eyes were deep and luminous, reflecting curiosity and something that seemed almost like amusement. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The room was filled with the quiet hum of energy, and John felt the air vibrate slightly around them. He realized that this was a leader who had not only authority but also a profound presence that demanded respect. Yet, beneath her regal appearance, there was a softness in her gaze that made him feel welcome. John cleared his throat and tried to introduce himself again. "I am John, from Earth. I come in peace. I want to learn about your world." He kept his voice calm and steady, hoping that his honesty would be understood. The queen tilted her head slightly, her glowing eyes studying him closely. Then, with a small gesture of her hand, she signaled for him to come closer. John moved forward slowly, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. She did not speak in words he could understand, but her gestures were clear. She was inviting him into her presence as an equal, at least for this moment. As he approached, John noticed something unusual. The queen's expression softened, and for a brief second, a small smile appeared on her face. It was playful, almost like a human smile, and it made John's heart beat faster. He realized that despite the differences in their species, there was a connection forming, subtle yet undeniable. The chamber's attendants moved aside, allowing them space. John bowed slightly again, and the queen nodded in acknowledgement. The silence was comfortable, not tense. He realized that this moment was rare, a first meeting that could define the relationship between humans and this alien civilization. He could feel the weight of history in the air, yet also a sense of possibility. The queen extended her hand in a gesture of friendship. John hesitated for a moment, then took it carefully. Her hand was warm, and he could feel a strange energy flowing from her. It was not dangerous, but it was powerful, like she was sharing a piece of herself with him. He squeezed gently, and the queen's faint smile grew slightly. John knew that this was just the beginning. He had entered a world filled with mystery, beauty, and intelligence beyond his imagination. The alien queen had accepted his presence, and in that acceptance, a bridge between two worlds was forming. He felt a surge of hope and excitement. There was so much to learn, so much to see, and perhaps, something extraordinary waiting to unfold. As he looked into her luminous eyes, John whispered quietly, not knowing if she could hear him the same way he spoke, "This is the start of something amazing." The queen tilted her head and regarded him with a playful glance, as if acknowledging his words without needing to respond. John realized that adventure awaited, but more importantly, so did friendship, trust, and a bond that could change the fate of two worlds. In that moment, John felt certain that landing on this planet was no accident. Something remarkable had begun, and he was ready to step into the unknown with courage and curiosity. The alien queen had noticed him, and their story was about to unfold in ways neither of them could yet imagine. After the first meeting with the alien queen, John felt both excitement and unease. He had never met a being so powerful and graceful. The queen, Zora, had accepted his presence, yet he sensed that gaining the trust of her people would require more than polite words. He was eager to show them that humans could be brave, clever, and trustworthy. The next morning, the palace attendants escorted John through winding corridors filled with glowing walls and floating orbs of light. He had barely begun to explore when Zara appeared before him. Her presence filled the room as if the air itself had changed. She spoke in melodic tones, which were repeated softly by her attendants. John could not understand the words, but he felt the meaning through her gestures and expressions. She was inviting him to face a test, a challenge to prove his courage and loyalty. John nodded, ready for whatever lay ahead. He had faced dangerous terrains on other planets, but nothing like this. Zorro led him to a large gate made of crystal-like material. It pulsed with energy, glowing brighter as he approached. Behind the gate lay the sacred labyrinth, a place where only the bravest could venture. Legends said that the labyrinth was guarded by energy creatures that could sense fear. Those who entered had to rely on wit, courage, and heart to succeed. A crowd of aliens gathered outside the gate to watch. They whispered among themselves, their eyes on John. He felt their curiosity, their doubt, and their hope. Zora turned to him and gave a small, encouraging nod. John took a deep breath and stepped forward. The gate shimmered, then slowly opened. Inside, the labyrinth was unlike anything he had imagined. The walls were tall and glowing with shifting patterns. The floor was smooth but seemed to move slightly beneath his feet. Strange lights danced along the paths, creating illusions that made him second-guess his steps. John kept his focus, remembering the lessons of his training on Earth. He could not let fear control him. Soon, the first challenge appeared. A group of energy creatures, shaped like shifting spheres of light, blocked his path. They hovered silently, their forms glowing with intensity. John remembered reading that these creatures reacted to emotion. Calmness and confidence could confuse them, while fear would attract them. He slowed his breathing, kept his mind steady, and moved forward. The creatures followed his movements, testing his resolve. He stepped carefully, using patterns in their movement to find a safe path. As he advanced, the labyrinth grew more complex. Paths split and twisted, some leading to dead ends or traps. At one point, the walls seemed to close in, and the floor became slippery with a glowing liquid. John's heart raced, but he focused on logic and observation. He noticed faint markings on the walls, patterns that indicated the correct path. He followed them, stepping with precision and determination. Each success strengthened his confidence, and the energy creatures seemed to recognize his courage. Midway through the labyrinth, he encountered a chasm glowing with energy. The light was blinding, and the gap seemed impossible to cross. John examined the edges carefully and discovered floating stones, barely visible against the radiant light. They formed a path if he moved carefully and timed his steps. He balanced himself, jumping from one stone to the next with careful precision. His muscles ached, but he did not stop. The creatures hovered near, testing him, but John remained steady. After what felt like hours, he reached a central chamber. The energy here was intense, almost overwhelming. In the center stood a pedestal with a small crystal glowing with a soft white light. This was the heart of the labyrinth, the final challenge. As John approached, the energy creatures gathered, forming a protective barrier. The crystal emitted a hum, and John realized he had to show more than courage. He had to show respect and understanding of the labyrinth's purpose. John spoke aloud, though he did not know if the creatures understood. "I come in peace. I seek to learn, not to harm. I respect this place and its guardians." He reached out carefully and touched the crystal. The light pulsed, and the energy creatures circled around him in a protective formation rather than attacking. The labyrinth seemed to respond to his sincerity. The walls shifted, creating a clear path to the exit. As he walked toward freedom, John felt a mix of relief and triumph. He had faced the labyrinth, confronted his fears, and demonstrated courage, cleverness, and respect. When he emerged, the aliens in the plaza erupted in quiet cheers. They had watched his journey with fascination, and now they understood that humans could be more than what legends suggested. Zora was waiting at the exit. Her eyes glowed brighter than usual, and her smile was warm and genuine. She stepped forward and raised her hand in a gesture of acknowledgement. John bowed, feeling proud but also humble. She approached him and spoke in her melodic tone. The attendants repeated her words softly. John still could not understand the language fully, but her gestures made the meaning clear. She was expressing admiration for his bravery and intelligence. For the first time, John felt that the distance between their worlds seemed smaller. He had entered a realm of beauty and mystery, faced its challenges, and emerged with honor. Zora's approval meant more than personal achievement, it symbolized the possibility of trust and friendship between humans and her people. The court began to gather around them. Aliens of all ages and ranks watched closely. Some bowed in respect, others whispered among themselves. John realized that he had not only passed a test of courage but also earned the first layer of acceptance from an entire civilization. The labyrinth was a rite of passage, and he had proven that humans could be brave, resourceful, and respectful of other cultures. Zora led John to a balcony overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking. The glowing towers, floating birds, and luminous paths formed a scene of beauty that John could hardly describe. He felt a sense of wonder and belonging. Zora's presence beside him made it even more remarkable. She looked at him with an expression that combined curiosity, amusement, and approval. John could not help but smile. "I did it," he said quietly, almost to himself. "I actually did it." Zora tilted her head, as if acknowledging his words, and her eyes sparkled with a soft glow. John felt a thrill of pride. He had faced danger, uncertainty, and the unknown, and he had emerged successful. This was only the beginning, but it was an important step. The evening came, and the city began to glow with soft light. Aliens returned to their homes, and the plaza emptied, leaving John and Zora alone on the balcony. The hum of the city was soothing, and John felt a connection with this world that went beyond words. He realized that courage, respect, and sincerity were universal. They transcended language, species, and culture. Zora extended her hand to him. John took it without hesitation. For a moment, they stood in silence, two beings from different worlds, united by trust and mutual understanding. John knew that this moment would remain in his memory forever. He had faced the labyrinth, earned the respect of an alien civilization, and formed the first bond of friendship with their queen. As the sun of the alien world set, painting the sky in shades of gold and green, John felt a sense of hope. The challenges ahead would be many, but he was ready. With courage, intelligence, and an open heart, he could face whatever came next. The labyrinth had tested him, and he had passed. Now, a new adventure awaited, one that would shape the future of two worlds. After the trials of the labyrinth, John felt both relief and excitement. The alien Queen Zora had recognized his courage and intelligence, but he sensed that the journey to truly gain her trust had only begun. The city around him pulsed with life and energy, yet he could feel a calm in Zora's presence. Her eyes, glowing softly, seemed to invite him to explore more than just the palace. She wanted him to understand her world. Zora led John through the palace gardens, a vast area filled with luminous plants and sparkling streams. The gardens were unlike anything he had seen on Earth. Trees with translucent leaves glowed with gentle light, and flowers released tiny particles that floated in the air like drifting stars. Strange birds, resembling glowing kites, sang melodies that echoed in harmony with the flowing water. John walked carefully, absorbing every detail, amazed by the beauty and serenity of this place. "This is incredible," John whispered, unable to contain his awe. He glanced at Zora, who tilted her head and let out a soft melodic sound that seemed like laughter. Though he did not understand the words, the meaning was clear. She was pleased that he appreciated the beauty of her home. As they walked along a glowing path, John noticed that Zora was not as formal as she had appeared in the palace. Her movements were graceful but relaxed, and sometimes she paused to observe the flowers or listen to the singing birds. He realized that behind her authority and power, she had a gentle curiosity about the world. John smiled. It was rare to meet a leader so strong, yet so willing to show kindness and wonder. They came to a small bridge over a shimmering stream. The water reflected the glowing plants above, creating a mirror-like effect. Zora stepped onto the bridge and gestured for John to follow. He hesitated for a moment, feeling the delicate energy in the air, but then he crossed carefully. On the other side, a series of floating stones led them to a circular platform. Here, the energy of the planet seemed stronger, almost alive. John turned to Zora. "Your world, it's more amazing than I ever imagined," he said. Zora's eyes glowed brighter, and she reached out, lightly touching his arm. The gesture was gentle, as if to say she appreciated his words. John felt a warmth spread through him, a connection that went beyond words or species. He realized that this moment, simple as it seemed, was building trust between them. They continued walking, sharing silence and gestures. John learned to read Zora's expressions, and she began to understand his intentions through his actions. They stopped near a grove of glowing trees, where small animals with crystal-like fur played. John crouched to watch them, and Zora joined him, her movements slow and careful. The creatures did not flee. Instead, they approached, sensing the calm energy of the two humans. John reached out his hand slowly, and one of the creatures touched it with its soft paw. Zora smiled, a rare expression that made her seem less like a queen and more like a companion sharing a secret. "Your people, they live in harmony with nature," John said quietly. Zora nodded, her glowing eyes reflecting the floating lights around them. She gestured for him to follow, leading him to a small waterfall that sparkled with multicolored energy. The sound of water was soothing, and John felt the stress of his journey begin to fade. For a while, they simply observed the waterfall, listening to its melody. John realized that this moment of quiet was important. In the human world, leaders rarely had time for simple peace, and yet here, even a queen could pause and enjoy the beauty around her. He found himself respecting Zora not only for her courage and power but also for her ability to value life in all its forms. Zora then pointed toward the sky, where several moons cast soft light over the gardens. The colors of the sky shifted gently, painting the clouds in shades of purple and green. John felt a sense of wonder he had never experienced before. "It's beautiful," he said. Zora nodded, and for a moment, she seemed to glow brighter, as if the colors of the sky reflected her emotions. John realized that beauty, courage, and kindness were not limited to any one species. They were universal. As they continued their walk, Zora led him to a quiet pavilion filled with soft glowing orbs. Here, she allowed him to speak freely about his home planet. John described Earth's oceans, mountains, and forests. He told her about the humans' curiosity, their desire to explore, and their ability to create and imagine. Zora listened closely, tilting her head at certain words and making melodic sounds that John could only interpret as fascination. She seemed genuinely interested in understanding a world so different from hers. John realized that trust was growing between them. He was learning the customs and values of her civilization, while she was learning about human nature. They exchanged gestures, smiles, and laughter. Simple moments like these built a connection stronger than any formal agreement could. John felt proud that he could communicate across worlds, using not words but sincerity and openness. As the sun set over the alien city, casting long shadows and glowing light across the gardens, Zora paused near a small glowing pond. She gestured for John to sit beside her. For the first time, he felt completely comfortable in her presence. The Queen's aura of authority remained, but it was softened by a genuine interest in him as a being, not just a guest or a curiosity. John spoke about the adventures he had experienced in space, the dangers he had faced, and the lessons he had learned. Zora listened silently, occasionally nodding or tilting her head. Then she shared, through gestures and melodic sounds, stories of her people, the history of her planet, and the challenges they had faced. John understood the meaning behind the words. Strength, wisdom, and unity were the foundation of the civilization. He admired not only her leadership but also the resilience and intelligence of her people. The night deepened, and the garden lights reflected off the water, creating a magical atmosphere. John felt a sense of connection that went beyond culture or species. He realized that friendship and trust could bridge worlds, and courage alone was not enough. Understanding and respect were just as important. Zora's presence had become a source of inspiration and motivation. He wanted to learn more, to grow closer, and to honor the bond forming between them. Finally, Zora stood and gestured for John to follow her back to the palace. As they walked, he felt that something significant had begun. Their connection was more than curiosity or politeness. It was a mutual recognition of value and respect. John understood that this was only the beginning of their journey. Many challenges would come, but with trust, courage, and understanding, they could face them together. When they reached the palace gates, Zora paused and looked at John with glowing eyes. She made a small gesture that John interpreted as approval and encouragement. He bowed respectfully, feeling a deep sense of pride and hope. For the first time, he realized that he was not just a visitor in her world, he was becoming part of it in a meaningful way. As John returned to his quarters that night, he reflected on the day. The labyrinth had tested his courage, and now, these moments of connection had tested his heart. He had learned that bravery was not only about facing danger but also about openness, respect, and understanding. Zora had shown him that leadership and wisdom could be gentle as well as strong. John lay on his bed, staring at the glowing ceiling of his quarters. He could still feel the warmth of the garden, the sound of the waterfall, and the spark of trust in Zora's eyes. He knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but he also knew that he was no longer alone. He had formed a bond that transcended worlds, a connection built on courage, curiosity, and mutual respect. For the first time in his life, John felt that he was truly part of something greater than himself. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown dangers and wonders, but with trust and friendship, even the most distant worlds could become home. As he drifted to sleep, he looked forward to the adventures and discoveries that awaited him, confident that with Zora by his side, anything was possible. The morning sun cast its golden light over the alien city. John awoke with a sense of purpose. His first days on the planet had been filled with wonder and discovery, but today felt different. The atmosphere in the palace was tense, a subtle energy of alertness hanging in the air. He dressed quickly and made his way to the central courtyard, where Zora was already standing, her glowing eyes focused on the horizon. "Good morning," John said, offering a warm smile. Zora nodded but did not return the smile. Instead, she gestured for him to follow. Her steps were swift, purposeful, as if she carried the weight of knowledge that few others did. John kept pace, curious and slightly anxious. He wondered what could have caused this sudden change in mood. As they approached the observation tower, Zora explained through gestures and melodic sounds. A rival alien faction from the neighboring region had begun to mobilize. They saw Zora's growing friendship with a human as a weakness, a threat to their power. This faction had planned an attack, aiming to take control of the city. John listened carefully, understanding the gravity of the situation. The city's defenses were advanced, but no one knew the tactics of this rival group. John's mind raced. He had studied strategies of conflict and defense from human history and space exploration missions. Perhaps he could offer insight that the aliens had not considered. Zora noticed his thoughtful expression and inclined her head slightly. She seemed to welcome his ideas, trusting him to help protect her people. The courtyard buzzed with activity as the city prepared for the potential attack. Alien guards sharpened their energy weapons, patrols moved in synchronized patterns, and scouts flew above in floating crafts. John observed everything, analyzing the patterns and considering how best to support the defense. He suggested a series of maneuvers that could mislead the enemy and protect critical areas. Zora listened intently, nodding in approval. Soon, alarms sounded. The rival faction had launched a small fleet of drones and energy ships toward the city. John and Zora rushed to the palace's command center, a room filled with holographic displays and controls that glowed with vibrant colors. John quickly assessed the situation. The enemy was skilled but not coordinated. He instructed the city's defense teams to focus on separating the enemy forces, using the labyrinthine city layout to their advantage. Zora acted with precision, issuing commands in her melodic language while John guided her attendants on human tactics. The city's defenses responded with speed and accuracy. Energy barriers rose, drones were intercepted, and the enemy forces began to falter. John felt a surge of pride. His knowledge, combined with Zora's authority and the city's advanced technology, created a formidable defense. The battle continued for hours. John moved among the command centers, helping coordinate the defense. He noticed a group of enemy ships attempting to bypass the main barriers and attack the palace directly. Without hesitation, he instructed a smaller team to intercept them. Using speed, misdirection, and energy pulses, they were able to neutralize the threat. Zora observed closely, her expression showing both admiration and relief. At one point, a large energy creature controlled by the enemy force broke through the outer defenses. Its glowing form was intimidating, and its movements were swift and unpredictable. John realized that direct confrontation might be too risky. Instead, he guided a group of palace defenders to create a trap using the city's energy fields. With careful timing, they lured the creature into the trap, neutralizing it without harm. The alien citizens cheered silently from their safe positions, witnessing the clever strategy. After the final wave of enemy drones was repelled, the city grew quiet. The streets were safe, and the citizens began to return to their daily routines. John and Zora stood together on a balcony overlooking the plaza. The damage was minimal, thanks to the city's advanced defenses and their coordinated efforts. Zora turned to John, her glowing eyes reflecting gratitude and something deeper respect. "You have saved many lives today," she conveyed through her melodic tones, repeated softly by her attendants. John smiled humbly. He knew that it was not just his actions alone, but the collaboration between human ingenuity and alien skill that had made the difference. John realized something important. Courage alone was not enough to protect a civilization, it required intelligence, adaptability, and cooperation. He had faced challenges before, but defending an entire city against a calculated attack was unlike anything he had imagined. The experience strengthened his resolve and deepened his bond with Zora. Later, in a quiet chamber within the palace, Zora and John reviewed the events of the day. She gestured for him to sit beside her, and he accepted, feeling honored by the invitation. Through soft sounds and gestures, she expressed curiosity about his decisions and strategies. John explained the reasoning behind each move, demonstrating respect for her intelligence and leadership. Zora listened closely, nodding occasionally, and he sensed her admiration for human creativity and problem-solving. As the evening approached, the city glowed with calm light. Citizens returned to the gardens and plazas, engaging in peaceful activities. The attack had been repelled, and the rival faction had retreated for now. John walked with Zora through the palace corridors, reflecting on the day's events. He realized that their bond was no longer just about curiosity or respect, it was about trust forged under pressure. Zora stopped near a glowing fountain in the central hall. She looked at John with an intensity that made him feel both nervous and encouraged. Her gestures conveyed a message of gratitude and recognition, acknowledging his role in protecting her people. John smiled, understanding the unspoken words. They had faced a threat together and had emerged stronger because of their collaboration. As night fell, John returned to his quarters. He could still hear the distant hum of the city and feel the energy of the palace around him. He reflected on how much he had learned from Zora and her people. Leadership, he realized, was not only about power, it was about understanding, responsibility, and courage. He had seen these qualities in Zora, and he was honored to witness and contribute to them. Before sleeping, John looked out of his window at the alien city illuminated by glowing towers and energy streams. The memory of the day's challenges and triumphs filled him with a sense of accomplishment. He knew that this was only the beginning of their journey. The galaxy was vast, and dangers were inevitable, but with courage, intelligence, and mutual respect, humans and aliens could face them together. John smiled as he thought of Zora. Their bond had grown stronger, built not just on adventure, but on trust and shared experience. He felt a quiet excitement for the days ahead, knowing that each moment offered new lessons and opportunities for connection. As he closed his eyes, he imagined the adventures still to come, confident that with determination and partnership, nothing could stand in their way. The city was alive with celebration. The rival faction had been driven back, and the citizens rejoiced in peace and harmony. Lanterns of soft light floated above the plazas, casting colors across the buildings that seemed to dance in the evening breeze. Music filled the air, melodic and enchanting, blending with the gentle hum of energy flowing through the city. John walked beside Zora, feeling both nervous and excited. He had spent weeks learning her world, understanding her people, and now he sensed that something extraordinary was about to happen. The palace courtyard was decorated with glowing flowers and crystals, creating an atmosphere that felt almost magical. Aliens of all ages gathered to celebrate the victory, their expressions filled with relief and happiness. Zora led John to the center of the courtyard, where a soft platform of light had been prepared for the festival. Her glowing eyes met his, and John felt a surge of courage. He had come to admire her strength, her wisdom, and her kindness, and now he wanted to express something personal, something playful. As the music swelled, John noticed that the citizens were watching him curiously. Their eyes reflected anticipation, yet there was trust in Zora's expression, as if she allowed him to take the moment into his hands. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment, and remembered the lessons he had learned since arriving on this planet. Courage, respect, and sincerity were universal. He stepped forward, raising his voice so that all could hear. "Zora," he said, his tone light but confident, "I have traveled across the stars, faced dangers I never imagined, and learned the beauty of your world. But there is one question I must ask." He paused, letting the words settle in the air. The crowd hushed, sensing that something important was about to happen. John smiled playfully and said, "Be my bride." His voice was gentle, teasing, and filled with sincerity. The words hung in the air, and for a moment, silence reigned. He felt his heart pounding, unsure how Zora would respond. The citizens froze, their eyes wide, waiting for the queen's reaction. Zora's expression shifted slowly. Her eyes widened slightly, and a soft glow spread across her skin. A flush of color appeared along her patterns, a signal of her surprise and amusement. She tilted her head, studying him carefully, and then, with a subtle nod, acknowledged his playful proposal. The courtyard erupted in quiet whispers and gasps of astonishment. John could hardly believe it. The queen, the ruler of this advanced civilization, had nodded in agreement. For John, the moment was exhilarating. He had crossed barriers of language, species, and culture, and now there was mutual recognition of trust, friendship, and perhaps something deeper. The citizens watched with a mixture of curiosity and approval. Many understood that this bond represented not only affection but also the unity of two worlds. Zora stepped forward, her glowing eyes meeting John's. She gestured gently, inviting him to walk beside her through the festival. The music swelled again, and the citizens began to celebrate, not just the victory, but the connection that had formed between the human and their queen. John felt a warmth spread through him. He realized that true connection required courage, honesty, and the willingness to be vulnerable. His playful words had been daring, yet sincere, and Zora had recognized that. As they moved through the festival, Zora allowed John to guide her toward a small pavilion decorated with floating lights. He held out his hand, and she placed hers in it. The sensation was gentle, yet powerful. John felt a strange energy flow between them, not magical in the ordinary sense, but something deeper, a bond of trust and understanding. He realized that this moment was as important as any battle, any challenge, or any discovery. It was a human moment in an alien world, and it mattered immensely. They reached the pavilion, and John gestured for the citizens to observe. He spoke again, explaining in simple words what he hoped for, not only a personal connection with Zora, but a symbol of unity between humans and her people. He emphasized respect, friendship, and shared adventure. Zora's eyes glowed brighter, as if she understood every nuance of his meaning. She responded with melodic tones that John could not understand with his ears, but he understood with his heart. Her gestures conveyed agreement, approval, and a gentle amusement at his playful approach. The citizens began to applaud softly, not with loud voices, but with glowing gestures, raising their hands in patterns that reflected light. It was a form of celebration unique to their culture, and John marveled at its beauty. He realized that he was witnessing a moment that would be remembered for generations, a union of trust, courage, and friendship between worlds. Zora then did something unexpected. She took a small crystal from the pavilion and handed it to John. Its glow reflected her patterns and energy, a symbol of acceptance and recognition. John took it carefully, understanding its significance. It was more than a token, it was a bridge between worlds, a tangible sign of their connection. He felt honored and humbled by the gesture. As the festival continued, John and Zora moved among the citizens, sharing smiles, laughter, and gentle gestures. They exchanged stories, not in words alone, but in understanding and shared experience. John realized that connection was not limited by language or species. The bond formed through courage, honesty, and playfulness could transcend all barriers. Later, when the celebration slowed, John and Zora stood alone on a balcony overlooking the city. The lanterns glowed softly, reflecting the calm energy of the night. He turned to her, feeling a quiet pride and affection. "Thank you," he said softly, "for trusting me, for sharing this moment, and for letting me be part of your world." Zora's eyes glowed warmly, and she extended her hand. John took it, feeling the energy between them once more. For a long time, they simply stood together, observing the city, the stars, and the gentle glow of the festival. John realized that adventure was not always about danger or discovery. Sometimes, it was about connection, trust, and the courage to express one's feelings honestly. His playful words had been bold, but they had opened the door to something extraordinary. As the night deepened, John knew that their bond would continue to grow. There would be challenges ahead, but he felt confident that they could face anything together. Zora's acceptance, her playful acknowledgement, and the shared understanding of their connection had created a foundation that was unshakable. Before returning to his quarters, John looked out over the city one last time. The glowing towers, floating lanterns, and gentle energy streams reminded him that beauty and courage were universal. He had entered an alien world as a visitor, and now he was part of it in a meaningful way. The playful proposal, accepted with grace and understanding, had changed everything. John turned to Zora one final time that night. She nodded gently, a silent acknowledgement of their shared moment. He felt hope, excitement, and a sense of belonging he had never experienced before. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders and challenges, but with trust, courage, and connection, even the most distant worlds could become home. The morning after the celebration, the palace was calm but filled with anticipation. John knew that while Zora had accepted his playful proposal, gaining the acceptance of the council would be another challenge. The council was made up of wise and experienced leaders who had governed alongside Zora for many years. Their opinions carried great weight, and their trust in John would be essential for the future. Zora led John through the grand halls toward the council chamber. The walls glowed softly, and energy patterns flowed along the floors like rivers of light. John admired the beauty of the palace but focused on the task ahead. He knew that words alone would not convince the council. He would need to show respect, understanding, and the willingness to learn about their culture. As they entered the chamber, the council members rose, their expressions curious and cautious. They were taller and more imposing than John had expected, their glowing patterns shifting subtly as they regarded him. Zora gestured for him to speak. John took a deep breath and stepped forward, bowing respectfully. "I am John, from Earth," he began. "I have traveled across the stars to learn and to understand. I respect your culture, your traditions, and your people. I have faced challenges here and learned from them. I ask not for power or honor, but for the opportunity to build trust, friendship, and understanding between our worlds." The council remained silent for a moment, studying him carefully. Their eyes reflected intelligence and discernment. John continued, I have seen courage in your people, wisdom in your queen, and beauty in this world. I offer my respect and my efforts to support harmony and growth. One council member stepped forward. Their glow shifted to a soft green, a sign of curiosity. You have faced the labyrinth and the threats against our city, they said in melodic tones, repeated by attendants for clarity. You have shown courage. But can you understand our ways, our rules, and our values? John nodded. I do not understand everything yet, but I am willing to learn. I will listen, observe, and act with respect. I will honor your traditions and support your people to the best of my ability. Zora watched him closely, her eyes glowing softly. She stepped forward and added her voice to the conversation. Through melodic tones and gestures, she explained that John had shown bravery, intelligence, and honesty. She emphasized that he had proven his loyalty not only through actions but also through respect for the culture and people of the city. The council whispered among themselves. John noticed their patterns of light shifting in subtle ways, a language of emotion and thought unique to their species. Slowly, one by one, council members nodded, signaling a cautious acceptance. They recognized that John's sincerity and courage were genuine. To further demonstrate his understanding, John was invited to participate in a council discussion. Zora guided him as he learned the procedures and the ways in which decisions were made. He asked questions respectfully, listened carefully, and offered insights based on human experience. The council responded positively, impressed by his willingness to learn and adapt. As the day progressed, John spent time with the council members, observing their customs and learning their history. He discovered the principles that guided their society: unity, respect, and responsibility. The council emphasized that true leadership was about service, wisdom, and the well-being of all citizens. John realized that these values were universal, shared across worlds, even if expressed differently. Zora watched him with quiet pride. She knew that John's understanding and respect would be essential for the future, not only for their bond but also for fostering trust between humans and her people. She could see that he was not just a visitor or a curiosity, he was becoming an ally, a partner in shaping a positive future. By evening, the council held a formal ceremony to acknowledge John's acceptance. They presented him with a glowing token, a symbol of trust and recognition. John received it humbly, understanding the responsibility it represented. He bowed deeply to the council, then to Zora, feeling a mixture of pride and gratitude. The citizens who had gathered applauded softly with gestures of light, celebrating the unity that had been achieved. After the ceremony, Zora led John to the palace gardens. The glowing plants, shimmering streams, and gentle music created a peaceful atmosphere. John felt a sense of calm and belonging he had never experienced before. He realized that acceptance was not about power or status, it was about understanding, respect, and shared values. Zora had trusted him, and now her people had recognized his sincerity and courage. They walked together in silence, enjoying the beauty around them. John reflected on the journey so far: the labyrinth, the threats from rival factions, the celebration, and now the council's acceptance. Each step had required courage, patience, and openness. Each moment had strengthened the bond between him and Zora, and between humans and her people. Zora paused near a glowing fountain. She looked at John, her eyes soft and luminous. Through gestures and melodic tones, she expressed her pride in his understanding and his respect for her culture. John smiled, feeling the warmth of her acknowledgement. He realized that their connection was more than playful words or shared adventures, it was built on trust, respect, and mutual understanding. John spoke quietly, I feel honored to be here, to learn, and to be accepted. I want to continue learning, to understand more, and to help build a stronger bond between our worlds." Zora nodded, her patterns glowing softly in response. She reached out her hand, and John took it carefully. The touch conveyed encouragement and trust, reinforcing the connection that had grown between them. As night fell over the city, the palace gardens glowed with soft light. John and Zora walked among the floating lanterns, sharing moments of quiet reflection. John realized that courage had opened the door, but understanding and respect had made the bond real. He felt a deep sense of purpose and belonging, knowing that he was part of something greater than himself. Zora stopped and turned to him. Her eyes reflected the gentle light of the lanterns, and she gestured for him to speak. John bowed slightly and said, "Together, we can face the future, learn from each other, and build a stronger connection between our worlds. I promise to respect your people, your traditions, and your values." Zora's response was a soft glow and a melodic sound that conveyed agreement and encouragement. John smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment and hope. The council's acceptance had marked a turning point, not only for him but for the relationship between humans and her civilization. Trust had been established, and with it, the potential for cooperation, friendship, and shared adventure. As they returned to the palace, John felt a quiet excitement for the days ahead. Challenges would come, as they always did, but he knew that with courage, understanding, and mutual respect, they could face them together. He had learned that true acceptance was not given lightly, it had to be earned through sincerity, action, and care for others. Before retiring to his quarters, John looked out over the glowing city. The lights reflected the harmony and peace that had been achieved, a city strengthened by trust and understanding. He felt a deep sense of hope and purpose. With Zora by his side and the support of her people, he believed that humans and aliens could create something extraordinary together. John turned to Zora one last time that night. Her soft glow and calm expression conveyed trust, pride, and encouragement. He smiled, knowing that their journey was far from over, but confident that with courage, respect, and understanding, they could face whatever the future held. Together, they had built the foundation for unity, friendship, and adventure across worlds. The morning sun rose over the alien city, casting a golden glow across the glowing towers and flowing streams. John stood beside Zora on the palace balcony, watching the city awaken. The events of the past weeks had changed everything. From the labyrinth to the threats from rival factions, from the playful proposal to the council's acceptance, every moment had brought them closer and strengthened the bond between their worlds. John turned to Zora, feeling a mix of excitement and anticipation. "It feels like the beginning of something new," he said softly. Zora's eyes glowed warmly, and she nodded in agreement. She gestured for him to follow her, leading him through the palace corridors toward a chamber filled with maps, holograms, and floating displays. This was the planning room, where Zora and her advisors considered the future of their civilization and its interactions with other worlds. Zora gestured for John to stand beside her, and he did so with pride. He had earned a place here, not as a visitor, but as a trusted ally. Together, they examined the holographic maps, noting areas of exploration, potential trade routes, and regions where their worlds could cooperate. John suggested ways humans could assist with knowledge, technology, and strategy, and Zora nodded, impressed by his insights. "This is more than just a partnership," John said. "It's a chance for both our worlds to grow, to learn from each other, and to create something better." Zora smiled, a soft glow radiating from her patterns. She gestured in agreement, emphasizing the value of trust, respect, and shared goals. The citizens of the city noticed the changes as well. Humans were no longer strangers, they were allies and partners in exploration and learning. John often walked among the citizens, sharing stories of Earth, listening to tales of their planet, and observing the ways their cultures could intertwine. He found joy in these moments, knowing that curiosity, courage, and understanding had bridged the gap between worlds. One afternoon, Zora invited John to the gardens once more. The glowing plants and flowing streams were in full bloom, reflecting the harmony that had been established. Children and young aliens gathered, curious about the human who had become part of their lives. John smiled and knelt to their level, answering questions, sharing simple lessons from Earth, and learning about their customs in return. Zora observed with pride, realizing that John's genuine interest and kindness had made him beloved by her people. As the day progressed, a message arrived from a distant region. A neighboring planet requested cooperation in exploration and scientific exchange. John and Zora studied the reports, noting opportunities to expand knowledge and friendship across the galaxy. John suggested careful planning to ensure safety, respect for local cultures, and maximum benefit for all involved. Zora agreed, impressed by his strategic thinking and consideration. That evening, the palace held a gathering to honor the achievements of recent weeks. Citizens, council members, and attendants gathered to celebrate not only victory and trust but also the unity between humans and their civilization. John and Zora stood at the center of the hall, receiving gestures of respect and approval. The energy in the room was calm, yet powerful, reflecting the strength of their shared journey. Zora gestured for John to speak, and he stepped forward humbly. "We have faced challenges together," he began. "We have learned from each other, shared victories, and built trust. This is only the beginning. Together, we can explore, create, and protect, not just our worlds, but the galaxy itself." The citizens responded with soft applause, their gestures glowing with warmth and encouragement. As the gathering ended, John and Zora walked together in the palace gardens. The glowing plants reflected the soft moonlight, creating a peaceful and magical atmosphere. John realized that the bond they had formed was more than friendship. It was trust, respect, and mutual understanding. It was a connection that transcended species, culture, and worlds. "I never imagined that a human could be part of this world in such a meaningful way," Zora said through melodic tones, repeated softly by her attendants. John smiled. "I never imagined finding a place where I truly belonged," he replied. The two shared a quiet moment, understanding the depth of their connection without needing more words. Days turned into weeks, and John continued to explore and learn. He visited training grounds, science labs, and cultural centers, observing and participating. He learned the intricacies of energy manipulation, the history of Zora's civilization, and the ways in which humans could contribute without disrupting the balance of this world. Zora often accompanied him, guiding him, teaching him, and learning from him in return. One evening, Zora invited John to the highest tower in the palace. From there, the entire city stretched below, glowing with vibrant colors and energy flows. John felt a sense of awe and wonder, realizing how far they had come together. Zora placed her hand on his shoulder, and he felt the warmth and trust in her gesture. "This is our world now, together," she conveyed. John nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility and the joy of belonging. They watched the twin moons rise over the city, casting soft light across the glowing streams and towers. John thought about the journey that had brought him here, the labyrinth, the playful proposal, the council's acceptance, and the city's trust. Each step had been a lesson in courage, respect, and connection. Now, he stood beside Zora, not as a visitor, but as a partner, ready to face whatever the future held. The nights were peaceful, filled with gentle sounds of the city and the hum of energy flowing through the palace. John often stayed with Zora, sharing stories of Earth, listening to tales of her people, and planning for new adventures. He realized that the greatest discoveries were not only in space but in understanding and connection. They had proven that humans and aliens could trust, respect, and learn from each other. Months passed, and the city thrived. Humans and aliens worked together in exploration, science, and culture. The bond between John and Zora became a symbol of unity and hope. Their shared adventures inspired others, showing that courage, kindness, and understanding could bridge any gap. One evening, John stood beside Zora in the palace garden. Lanterns floated above them, casting soft light across the glowing plants. He looked into her eyes, feeling a sense of gratitude and admiration. "Thank you for trusting me, for allowing me to be part of your world," he said softly. Zora's glow brightened, and she reached out to hold his hand. "And thank you for your courage, your respect, and your heart," she conveyed. John realized that their journey was far from over, but he also knew that they had laid a strong foundation. Together, they would explore new worlds, face challenges, and build bridges between civilizations. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but with trust, courage, and understanding, humans and aliens could achieve greatness together. As the twin moons rose higher in the sky, John and Zora stood hand in hand, overlooking the city they had helped protect and strengthen. The glowing towers, flowing streams, and peaceful citizens reflected the harmony they had achieved. John felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had traveled across the stars, faced challenges, and found a place where he truly belonged. Zora's eyes glowed warmly, and she leaned slightly toward him. Together, they looked to the horizon, imagining the possibilities of the future. Exploration, friendship, and unity awaited. John knew that whatever adventures lay ahead, they would face them together. Courage, respect, and connection had brought them here, and those same qualities would guide them forward. For the first time in his life, John felt completely at home among the stars. He had found trust, friendship, and understanding in an alien world. The journey had tested him, taught him, and changed him, but it had also given him a bond that would last a lifetime. With Zora by his side, he knew that the future was full of promise, adventure, and hope. As the night embraced the city, John and Zora remained on the balcony, hand in hand, ready to face the vast galaxy together. They had crossed worlds, cultures, and challenges, and now they were ready to build a new beginning, united by courage, trust, and a shared heart. The adventure had only just begun.